Okay, it's Tuesday and I'm back at my faceplate project here with the gauges. I painted this thing yesterday, put a couple of coats on it and let it dry overnight, and it came out really good. Pretty darn happy with that thing. I also glued this piece back on here. It feels pretty solid, but yet I know it's not as solid as it once was. So that's the back of the faceplate. We're really ready to install this. Thinking yesterday, I got to thinking about it and I realized just gluing this thing in, that's the idea that I had, just isn't gonna cut it, unfortunately. I'm gonna have to bolt it in, and that means I'm gonna have to drill through the front of this thing, because if I didn't have the cigarette lighter installed in here, using it for charging systems, I think I'd be okay and I could probably just glue it. But once I'm trying to insert something into that cigarette lighter or pull it back out, you know, whatever thing that I'm charging, it's going to put a lot of pressure on that, and it's eventually going to break this plate loose from, you know, from the frame here. So the glue's not going to work, but if I drill 2 holes here and then 2 more here, I know that's not going to look real good. But I'm going to use a really small, very nice stainless steel bolts, and if I sink them down a little bit, I think it'll look okay. And I could even paint them black, I guess, but I'm afraid that's just the only way I'm going to be able to make this work. So I'll have 2 bolts here, and then the other 2 will be right on the edges here, but they're going to be very small. Probably 1632s, I think. I know I have a whole bunch of them out in the shop somewhere. I got quite a collection of stainless steel fancy nuts and bolts and washers, so I should be able to find something to work here. So I guess that's the first thing we got to do. And I did get quite a bit of my wiring ran yesterday from the dash through the firewall into the engine compartment. And I got a little bit more work to do on that. Of course, I haven't wired it up yet. Nothing is connected up. It's just the wires are just run through there, and they're just sitting there waiting for the final connection. And then I've got to figure out how I'm going to wire these gauges to my dash light switch, or to my dash lights. So when I turn my dash lights on, my parking lights, headlights, the lights in these need to come on. I've done that before. I just don't remember how I did it. I think I actually plugged in to the fuse box someplace, and I need to, that's probably going to be the last thing that I'm going to get done today. So let's get started on this and get it all put together and get moving on. Unfortunately, the weather outside really sucks. It snowed in the foothills around the valley here, so it's pretty cold outside. But I got to get this thing done so I can drive it to work tomorrow. Okay, I just drilled out my faceplate and my piece that goes into the dash, and it looks pretty darn good. I really don't like these bolts showing like that, but screws. But there's really not much I can do about it. I kind of sunk them down as far as I could. Didn't want to go any farther because that'll weaken it. So nothing broke at that time that I was doing all this drilling work. I didn't break off my piece that I glued on, and I did not damage my new paint job on this thing. So this is together, so I'm going to take this out to the truck and put it in there and see how it looks, and then we'll start mounting gauges in here and doing all that. Okay, well, I'm kind of behind today. It's getting later in the day now because I've had some company and phone calls and all the rest. But I've got the gauge mounted in here. The gauge is mounted in here. And I had to do this because I'm going to have to pull this line through the firewall. And I'm also going to have to pull a line for the hot wire. This is for the... This will be connected to the headlights, to the dash lights. Illumination, that's what it is. That's what I'm trying to say. I've already got my ground and my hot for the second cigarette lighter. This one already has one because it's factory. The problem that I'm seeing here is that these gauges are going to have to be grounded. And I don't know how the heck I'm going to get a ground connected to them. I'm going to have to ground this part of it, of course, or else the lights just won't work. These gauges were evidently designed to be mounted to a metal surface, so they would automatically have the ground. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to come up with something, and I don't think I'm going to get that done today. I want to get this thing in here and get the amp meter connected up, and that's my top priority for today, is to get it mounted in there and get that hooked up, because I got all that wiring running into the engine compartment and I need to do something with it. So and I got all the wiring for this running, so I'm gonna go out there and put this thing together and try to get as much finished as I can. I'm just kind of running out of time right now. Okay, well, we're about done here for the day. Really far behind. Not gonna get it all done, but we're just about to reconnect this piece of the dash back, and it looks pretty good. So anyway, what do I got going on here? This wire here is my hot wire for my for the illumination on these gauges. I don't have that in there because I can't get it hooked up today because I haven't figured out how I'm going to ground that out. The only meter I got, even though I got this wire running into the engine compartment, it's not hooked up, and that's for my water temperature gauge. The amp meter is hooked up here, but not hooked up in the engine compartment. So I'm just about to put this thing back together. The only thing I'm going to be able to have today is this is a secondary cigarette lighter. I've got a positive, I've got two positives and two grounds for that. Those were for the 148, but I can go ahead and use them. Use one of those for the cigarette lighter, and that's all I'm going to get hooked up today, besides the original factory lighter. Okay, here we are. We've got the thing back together, the faceplate and all that. So let's go ahead and turn our power on. Try out our cigarette lighter, because that's the only thing that's wired up and should work. I wish I had time to finish this. I'm just way behind and gotta call it a day, unfortunately, but it looks pretty good here. So hopefully in the next couple of days I can get out here and hook the amp meter up. Oh yeah, it's hot. I don't know if the camera can see it, but that thing is hot.